All right, we made it to week 2. Hopefully you've got kind of the feel for how Blackboard is set up, where you can find everything. If you're still having trouble with that, please let me know as soon as you get a chance, and you're not going to bother me. I'm in my office way too much. I'll be glad to help if you have any questions. Just let me know. Like I've mentioned so many times, this is a really fast-paced class, so even though this is just week 2, we're over 10% done with the semester. So if you are confused on where to find anything, please, as soon as you can, let me know. So let's look at this week. This is a big one. We've got a lot of stuff to do. So first off, the practice exam, and I told you about this last week. Most of you have done this already at this point. But the practice exam is to make sure you know how to use Respondus. It's to make sure you understand the rules for recording your environment, not having anything around you, making sure the webcam is centered on you, all that. So that's really the important thing. I need you to do that before we have the real test this week. So that is due Tuesday. You've got the instructions for that below. Go to the exams tab. There's a whole folder for the practice exam. Read through that. Let me know if you have any questions, but make sure to complete that by Tuesday. What's going to happen is Wednesday, I'm going to come up here and review all those. If everything was good, I'll give you your 5 bonus points. If there was a problem, if you didn't record your environment correctly, or if you had stuff out, and I know it's just a practice exam, but if you had stuff out during the exam, or if you're talking to somebody, you're on your phone, I'm going to remind you, send you a message and say, just a heads up, you would get a 0 if this was a real test, and I'm going to ask you to redo it. All right? So around Wednesday, check your messages, see if you get anything back from me. Before you take the real test, definitely check your messages, see if you got any feedback. If not, everything was probably okay, just to make sure that you followed the instructions for the real test. All right? All right, so our test, just to jump ahead just a little bit, our first exam is at the end of this week, Thursday and Friday. You need to watch the Chapter 2 lecture before you take the exam. I had someone send me a message. I know it's kind of confusing. I didn't want to assign all of those chapters last week. I didn't want to say, hey, welcome to the class. Here's 4 chapter lectures for you to watch. So you need to watch the Chapter 2 lecture early this week if you haven't done that already, okay? Like as soon as you see this. If it's the weekend before all this starts, go ahead and do it. Monday, Tuesday, make sure you do it, because the real test is Thursday and you need to have studied that and had enough time to kind of review that information. So Chapter 2 is on chemistry. I know that's a little different from what we've been doing so far, but this is basic. Like, I taught middle school for 1 year, and that was one of the worst years of my life, but I taught 7th and 8th grade science. The chemistry that we're covering in this chapter is like at that level. This is not really difficult chemistry, but it's stuff that's related to what we're going to talk about later in the semester. So watch that. Definitely focus on that. Give yourself enough time to study. And then you've got a review quiz that's due. I'm going to make this due Sunday, the 24th, just because that's when all of our quizzes are due. But you really need to do the review quiz before the test. All right? So, all right, now, big one. Exam 1 is going to be open Thursday and Friday. Our exams are going to be open for 48 hours. That way, whatever your work schedule is like, hopefully you can pencil in some time to make sure that you're not going to be distracted, you're not going to have anyone else around you, and that you can sit down and take those exams. All right? So Thursday and Friday, January 21st and 22nd. It is multiple choice. You'll have 65 questions, so I'm going to give you about a minute per question. Really, if that just scared you that I said there was a time limit, don't let that bother you. When I give this exam, and I've taught online classes for 7-8 years now, when you take the test, like huge majority, I'm going to say 99% of the students are done in 20, 25, 30 minutes. All right? That's plenty of time. So don't let that stress you out. As long as you've studied and as long as you know the material, you're not going to take the whole time. But just be aware that there is a time limit. So that is Thursday and Friday. Only other things, well, a couple big things. One, last week's assignments that I mentioned to you, so the About Me survey, the syllabus quiz, the diversity project, and then that Chapter 1:15-19 review quiz. All of those are also due Sunday, so if you didn't do them last week, make sure that you don't forget that and that you do those before the due date. And last one is the Lab 1. We've got our first lab is this week. So I know that we just started. I've stressed way too much at the beginning of this semester that you've got to get your lab kit, because we've got to every week be doing these lab assignments just because it's an 8-week semester. So that's going to be due also Sunday the 24th. just read through. If you did the prerequisite activities, and remember, you have to do those before you can do a real lab. But if you've done those prerequisite activities, then you kind of know how the website is set up. You read through the exploration, then you do the experiment. This one will be a little different because you actually got hands-on experiments that you need to do. But in this one, we're going to be testing for different organic molecules. I know we haven't lectured on that yet. That's something we're going to talk about next week. But basically, there's certain types of molecules that are in our body, things like carbohydrates or sugars, things like protein and lipids, which are like fats in our body. We're going to check for those organic molecules in a couple different substances, and you're going to do an experiment. You're going to be mixing chemicals from your lab kit to test for those things. All right. There are some things that you have to buy that you're going to need for the lab. So I've got that list. I know that looks like a lot, but if you'll read that list, it's probably most of this stuff you have already. So distilled water, if you need to buy that, get a big old gallon of distilled water. That'll last you the whole semester. It's like $1 for that. You may need to get an egg, but things like boiling water, you can just get tap water and boil that. Dish soap, fork, spoon, Sharpie, things you probably have already. Just read through that list and make sure that you make a shopping trip before, like the night before the lab is due. All right. If you have any questions on that lab, let me know. I would recommend, if you can, to try to do the lab early in the week, and that way if you run into an issue, you can send me a message and I can hopefully work with you on that. Like if you're doing it Sunday before the due date, I'm probably not going to be able to help you. But if you'll let me know ahead of time, I'll be glad to help. All right. I think that has got it for this week. Like I said, it's a big one. We've got our tests. So just study. Let me know ahead of time if you have any questions, and I'll be glad to help. And I will get back with you. Thanks.